Healthy English is a website that's been created by the East Cheshire NHS Trust at Macclesfield Hospital. This resource has been developed to address the language and communication needs of international health and care staff and their colleagues and patients in the UK. The site will be developed, improved and refined over time, of course, but there's much that can be used and shared in its current form. Healthy English is not exclusively for the use of non-native speakers. We're all responsible for making sure that communication, particularly speaking and listening, is optimal at all times. Native speakers too can learn how to help and support their colleagues and patients and to make adjustments in the way they communicate with them. Understanding how your own language works and how other languages are different from it can be a continual learning process for everyone. The process will also include understanding different social and cultural norms and practices. This site can be used for self-study and as part of training programs. Let's look at the content now of the site and how to navigate around it. On the home page, there are 10 buttons indicating the content of the site. About Healthy English, a sitemap, Healthy English, a quick reference guide, colloquial and informal English, communication skills and barriers to good communication, the English verb tenses, pronunciation, questions and responses, stress, phrasing and intonation, and working and communicating with non-native speakers of English. The sitemap gives you a much clearer and more detailed overview of the content of the site. Starting from the top here, colloquial and informal English. This section is really about the use of vocabulary and its non-literal use. English, like many other languages, is full of idioms. And when speaking about medical issues, we often use specific idioms to describe them. Idiomatic English is particularly difficult to learn and to be confident in using. Here we have a long list of idioms, and if we look to the right and click on one of the drop-down arrows, we have a sentence containing the idiom. Phrasal verbs. Phrasal verbs are verbs composed of a verb and a preposition, or occasionally two prepositions. It's not possible to understand the meaning of a phrasal verb by looking at the component parts of it. You have to learn phrasal verbs as complete units and understand the contexts in which they're used. Often this is quite difficult to remember because many of them begin with common English verbs such as to get or to put. And just by adding the preposition, the meaning is fundamentally changed. Get across, get on with, get at, get away with, get down to, get on, get by, get over, get through, get around. And here we have conversations and typical situations in which phrasal verbs would be used in medical or care contexts. Little test at the bottom. There's also here a section on medical lay terminology the medical term being used on the left-hand side, and the lay or common way of expressing the same thing on the right. Again, a long list to clarify the difference between the more formal and medical way of saying something and the more common everyday way of saying it. Communication skills and barriers. Some of these sections are self-explanatory, such as the language used when examining a patient, or leading a patient through a consultation and providing clear signposts for him or her. Others are perhaps less well known, such as false friends. False friends are words in one language which sound and look similar to those in another language, but which mean totally different things. For example, the word gift in English, meaning a present, means poison in German. And embarazada in Spanish, sounding rather like embarrassed in English, means pregnant in Spanish. Another one from Spanish, constipado in Spanish means a cold in English. As it says at the bottom of the example page, you need to find out what the false friends are between your native language and English, especially when you're talking about medical issues, health, and compliance. English has 12 verb tenses as well as other ways of conveying time. This is difficult for the Chinese speaker, for example, as in Chinese, the form of the verb never changes regardless of the tense. They convey time in a very different way and not through the verb. And English has tenses that some other languages do not. So, for example, we can say, I have done something and I did something. They are used in very specific ways. But the have done or has done tense, called the present perfect, does not exist in some languages. And there's a big difference between did you take your medication, which means at some time in the past, and have you taken your medication, which means just now or recently. This difference could be very important. So there's a section on all of the tenses of English, how to form them, and how they're used. There is a big section focusing on the pronunciation of English. This is broken down into 3 sections. English phonemes, a presentation about the individual sounds of English, of which there are 44. This includes also a second section, which is drawn from the BBC pronunciation series, showing how these sounds are produced and how they are linked together. And one small section on the difference between the generic northern and southern ways of pronouncing English. Further down, there is a section on stress, phrasing, and intonation, what we do when we link words together, how to slow down our English, how to speak clearly and slow down, and word formation and word stress, leading to a more detailed section on different types of word or syllable stress, more phrasing, sentence stress, and where we put the stresses on 3 and 4 syllable words. This section, for example, has an accompanying audio so that we can practice by listening. Your ability to speak another language is partly influenced by the grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation of your own native language. As an example, think of the sound of the informal word for you in French. Tu. The U sound does not exist in English. Or in English, we can say, for example, I work for the NHS, or I am working for the NHS. The first means you're a permanent employee. The second means that you're working temporarily or for the time being. But in many languages, these two versions of the present tense don't exist. There's only one tense to stand for both of these meanings. These problems will be different for individuals depending on what their native language is. So a native Filipino speaker, for example, will have very different grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation problems and difficulties when using English compared with, say, a native Polish or Chinese speaker. So there is a section which tries to address the needs of speakers of specific languages. So far, we've included Arabic, Chinese Mandarin, Filipino, the Indian subcontinent, a big group of languages, admittedly, but based on languages such as Gujarati, Hindi, Punjabi, and Urdu, Polish, and Romanian. More languages will be added over time, and the more feedback we get from users of our site, the better we will become at addressing the specific needs of individuals from different linguistic backgrounds. A very important skill is that of asking questions. These are formed in a variety of ways and can be closed questions, open questions, clarifying questions, direct questions, indirect questions, and so on. And when used skillfully, these promote effective interaction and comprehension. And of course, the tenses of the verbs used have to be chosen carefully. Here in this section, we have a couple of videos asking about symptoms, asking about and describing pain, and a presentation at the beginning consisting of 32 slides going through details about how questions are formed and how they're used. As mentioned at the beginning of this video, this site is not meant exclusively for the use of non-native speakers of English. We all have to work with colleagues and patients who are native and non-native speakers of the language. So to help with this, there is a 6-part article examining the challenges of communicating in English, highlighting many of the difficulties and problems, and offering solutions and tips about how to deal with them. The 6 parts of the article are accompanied by audio recordings for those who would like to read and listen at the same time, or just listen. Finally, there is Healthy English, a summary, a section highlighting some of the major points of the site. This section can be used as a way of reminding oneself about the more detailed sections elsewhere on the site, or printed for use on notice boards, to be put in folders or reference manuals. As we say on the About Healthy English page, share it with as many people as possible. Refer to it as often as possible. Review your communication skills in the same way as you maintain your health. Welcome to Healthy English.